Hello, Kentucky. Does this season seem like a nightmare right from the start? The team considered the best prepared, even by experts, the title contender, has losses to Louisville and Michigan. That's not good. Let's see more news. The start of the Kentucky basketball season has become an emotional test for a fan base accustomed to seeing the Wildcats as a powerhouse ready to dominate from the first bounce of the ball. With only 5 games played, the 3-2 record on paper says little. It's the way these losses happen that exposed, too early, a team still searching for its form and its voice. And, paradoxically, it is precisely in this turbulence that signs also emerge of where the reconstruction and the possible rebirth of the project led by Mark Pope might be. The 96-88 loss to Louisville was the first shock of reality. Not so much because of the final score, but because of the hole dug in the second half when Kentucky was down by 20 points. The late recovery made the game more presentable, but it didn't fool anyone. The classic revealed defensive weaknesses, poor communication, and a team that took too long to adjust its intensity to the size of the rivalry. Even so, there was a spark. The group's ability, even disconnected, to find some offensive rhythm at the end, suggesting that when a team clicks, individual talent can still make a difference. But the following game made it clear that the warning needed to be taken seriously. Against Michigan State, the Wildcats again came out slow, predictable, and vulnerable. A 17-point deficit at halftime and the feeling that the opponent controlled every detail of the game reinforced the diagnosis. Kentucky wasn't just losing games, it was losing its identity. The final 83-66 score sounded like a provisional sentence, but a sentence nonetheless. Slow rotations, non-existent transition defense, and an offense that seemed to evaporate when it most needed answers created the worst kind of narrative for the start of the year. That nothing was working at the same time. The irony is that, in the previous season, Mark Pope had built a team capable of surviving its own mistakes because it had firepower. The offense flowed, the spacing was consistent, the center orchestrated plays, and the ball circulated naturally. Now, however, without offense and without defense, the job requires another kind of patience. One that goes beyond just statistics. Pope had already warned that the identity would begin with the defense, that the offense would be refined over time. His sincerity after the victory against Eastern Illinois showed rare transparency in teams going through turbulence. "I wish we were further along now," said the coach. An honest acknowledgement that the project is behind schedule, but also a declaration of responsibility. This is the roster he assembled, with heavy investments, betting on talented athletes, but also on players with a learning curve. And injuries, always injuries, didn't help. Without Jalen Lowe, the main playmaker, without Jaden Quaintance, still recovering from a knee injury, and with Mo Diabate leaving the game against Michigan State with pain, the team finds itself without key pieces that would drastically change the team's tactical and emotional makeup. Even so, the fact that Kentucky remains competitive even with these absences indicates that, when finally complete, the team will have tools it can't even explore today. Therefore, there's a double possible picture at this early stage. The first is one of justified concern. Inconsistent rhythm, permeable defense, and an offense lacking identity. The second, however, is one of opportunity. 5 games don't define a season, nor the potential of a group that is still far from its ideal configuration. Mark Pope doesn't shy away from this diagnosis, which is already a start. He knows this team needs to regain confidence, tie up loose ends, and truly build the defensive identity he's preached since day one. If the season started as a nightmare, it's still far from ending as one. Alarm bells are ringing in Lexington, but signs of life, talent, and possibility are also there. In a sport that changes rapidly, a simple adjustment, the return of a key player, a shift in energy, a convincing victory, is all it takes for everything to make sense again. For now, Kentucky is experiencing turbulence. But turbulence is not destiny. And in the history of the Wildcats, some of the highest leaps have come precisely after the most uncomfortable falls. Mark Pope knows this tradition. It remains to be seen when his team will decide to fully embrace it. Mark Pope's demeanor after the loss to Michigan State was one of the most revealing and, at the same time, inspiring displays of leadership one can expect from a coach in times of crisis. Facing a delicate situation, with his team oscillating between promising and disappointing moments, Pope not only accepted responsibility for the difficult moment, but also charted a clear path for the future. A path that, although arduous, seems to pulsate with genuine determination. The current scenario for Kentucky basketball is complex. The program, accustomed to being synonymous with excellence in college basketball, is in a period of transition. The 5 games played so far this season have exposed a team still searching for itself, lacking the collective fluidity or consistency necessary to compete at a high level. Injuries to key players, such as Lowe and Jaden Quaintance, certainly contributed to this, but they cannot serve as the sole excuse. The lack of identity mentioned by Pope goes beyond momentary absences. It is a reflection of the difficulty in uniting individual talents under a cohesive philosophy. Pope acknowledged this vacuum directly and courageously. His statement that we've failed so far, but we won't fail this season, resonates as a public commitment, both to his players and to the impatient fans of the Big Blue Nation. He didn't try to minimize the gravity of the moment or externalize the blame. Instead, he fully embraced the weight of the situation and transformed that pressure into fuel for change. This attitude is crucial for a coach who is at the beginning of his journey in a program with the expectations of Kentucky. It demonstrates maturity and a long-term vision, essential qualities for anyone who wants to build something lasting. Pope's emphasis on building an organization and a culture, terms he used repeatedly in his speech, reflects a deep understanding of what is needed to sustain success in a program of this size. It's not just about assembling a competitive team year after year. It's about creating a mentality that transcends any individual player or specific group. This type of approach requires patience, especially in an environment where immediate results are often prioritized at the expense of more solid fundamentals. Pope knows that Kentucky needs to evolve from a collection of stars into a truly cohesive team, and he's willing to do the hard work to get there. It's impossible to ignore the magnitude of the challenge Pope faces. Kentucky, with its virtually unlimited resources and reputation as a talent factory for the NBA, attracts constant scrutiny and criticism. Every loss is amplified, every technical failure scrutinized. However, Pope seems to understand that this scrutiny is part of the game. Instead of retreating or seeking external justifications, he chose to confront reality head-on, promising improvements and reiterating his commitment to the project. This stance also sends a powerful message to the players. When a coach takes responsibility so unequivocally, he not only relieves the pressure on the roster, but also inspires confidence. The players need to know they have a leader who not only points out problems, but is also willing to work alongside them to solve them. Pope's statement wasn't just a promise to the public. It was an invitation for his athletes to embrace the growth process and be an active part of the solution. Of course, words are only the first step. For this promise to materialize, Pope will need to translate his vision into tangible results. This includes adjusting the team's tactical functioning, ensuring that injured players return in optimal condition, and perhaps most importantly, nurturing the sense of belonging that transforms a group of talents into a unified team. Still, there is something deeply encouraging in the way Pope approached the situation. His tone was not one of resignation, but of conviction. He knows Kentucky has a lot to prove, but he also firmly believes that the worst is behind them. For Kentucky fans who are anxiously watching the start to the season, Pope's words should be seen as a light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, there is work to be done, and yes, there will be difficult times ahead. But with a leader willing to face challenges head-on and learn from mistakes, there is reason to believe that better days are coming. Kentucky basketball, under Mark Pope's leadership, may be going through a turbulent phase, but it's far from lost. And, as Pope himself promised, we will not fail. The news that Christian Collins, one of the most coveted targets in the 2026 draft class, will only make his decision in the spring brings with it a mix of optimism and uncertainty for Wildcats fans. Although the program is still considered the favorite to secure the signature of the talented five-star forward, the postponement of this decision prolongs the suspense and, at the same time, increases the pressure on Coach Mark Pope and his staff. The recent loss to the Michigan State Spartans in New York only served to intensify the climate of urgency and scrutiny surrounding the program. At times like this, positive news in the draft can act as a balm to calm the concerns of a fan base hungry for wins and renewal. However, the absence of firm commitments so far puts Kentucky in an unusual position, that of pursuer rather than undisputed leader. This dynamic, while uncomfortable for an institution with a history and tradition of the Wildcats, reflects both changes in the recruitment market and the need to adapt to the new realities of college basketball. Christian Collins, considered one of the most promising players of his generation, represents much more than just a name on a recruitment list. He embodies the opportunity for revitalization for Kentucky, which seeks to rebuild its roster with players capable of competing at the highest levels of the sport. With his versatility, athleticism, and proven ability to impact the game in multiple aspects, Collins would be an important asset in the attempt to restore the program's prestige. However, the fact that he is postponing his decision until the spring introduces an inevitable dose of uncertainty into the process. Rival universities, UCLA and USC, are watching the situation closely. While Kentucky still leads in projections, the additional time allows other schools to intensify their persuasive strategies. Recent history shows that, under Mark Pope's leadership, the program has struggled to close deals quickly, allowing competitors to gain momentum as the process drags on. This pattern is concerning, especially when it comes to names as influential as Collins. Other high-profile players, such as Tyron Stokes and Caleb Holt, also remain on Kentucky's radar. Together, these athletes have the potential to form a recruiting class that could catapult the program back to the top of national conversations. However, the fact that no deals have been sealed so far reflects the complexities of modern recruiting, where competitiveness among universities and the increasing assertiveness of athletes have made the process more unpredictable than ever. For Mark Pope, this is a test of his ability not only as a coach, but as a strategist in the talent acquisition game. He needs to balance the urgency of immediate results with a long-term vision, demonstrating to recruits and their families that Kentucky remains a prime destination for those who want to develop as players and build a career in professional basketball. Furthermore, there's the emotional aspect. In a moment of adversity, like the one the program is going through, the ability to convey confidence and purpose can be decisive in winning over the most ambitious young athletes. Entering winter without any firm commitments for the class of 2026 is an unusual situation for Kentucky, but it shouldn't be seen as a definitive sentence. College basketball is a dynamic ecosystem where the landscape can change rapidly. The work of Mark Pope and his team in the coming weeks will be crucial in shaping the near future of the program. After all, recruitment isn't just about identifying talent. It's about proving that the offered project is the most aligned with each athlete's aspirations. Thus, as the clock ticks towards spring, Kentucky faces a double challenge: maintaining its leading position in the race for Christian Collins and, at the same time, devising an effective strategy to attract other big names. Will he come? Comment.